All right, let me just check and make sure that I am live. Yes. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our very first Wellness Chat Wednesday. I am super excited to be here with you today and to chat it up. So let's get started right now. All right, so today's topic is motivation, and this has been really huge for me so far since school has started again, and also it's probably the number one thing that comes up in my conversations with people when I'm chatting with them. It's either one of two things. They can't get motivated or they can't stay motivated. And so today I want to kind of jump into a little bit about the psychology behind motivation and what it is that makes us go and keeps us going, and what is holding us back. So I want to start with saying that I love that people, and I am totally guilty of this myself, but it seems that we like to use motivation as our biggest excuse. And I say that it's an excuse because it's either, well, I can't work out because I can't, or I can't lose weight because I can't work out because I can't stay motivated to stick with it. Or I can't make money because I'm not motivated to go out and do the things that I need to do, or something along those lines. We always use motivation as an excuse, but really it's all in your brain and it's all up to you, and you don't need anything that physical. Like, motivation isn't something that you can just have and then all of a sudden all your problems are gone, right? So if you look at the literal dictionary definition of what motivation is, it is a moving force, a stimulus, or an influence that gives you a reason to act or to accomplish something. So let me say that again. It is a moving force, a stimulus, or an influence that provides you with a reason to act a certain way, or to accomplish something, or to start doing something. So motivation isn't actually this thing that we can have, but instead it provides us a reason for why we do things. So there's two different types of motivation that I kind of want to dig into, one of which is intrinsic and one is extrinsic. So intrinsic motivation is the type of motivation that comes from inside of you. Makes sense. Inside, intrinsic, right? So that would be like if you have a favorite hobby or a skill or something that you never have any problems being motivated to do because you like the way it makes you feel and you are driven to learn more about it, or you are driven to continue doing that thing because it is rewarding to you. That is intrinsic motivation. It comes from inside of yourself. Extrinsic motivation is more of the outside factors, things like money and recognition and sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. Money, motivation, recognition, something material that you get. So we use extrinsic motivation a lot in school with kids. You see them doing something good, you see them on having good behavior, or they get a really good grade on a test and you give them a reward. Sometimes it might be a piece of candy, sometimes it might be free time, sometimes it can be different things, but it's coming from outside of themselves because it's coming from you, so that's what makes it extrinsic. For adults, our paychecks are extrinsic motivation, right? I mean, you go to work every day potentially in a job that you don't like. That's not the case for everyone, but you do go to work every day because you like that reward of getting that paycheck whenever the time rolls around, right? So extrinsic motivators are outside things that you're getting from somewhere else. Recognition is another one. You might strive to achieve a goal or win a contest or something like that so that you get recognition from people other than yourself. It's not that you're just doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for the recognition from others. So that would also be considered an extrinsic motivation. So I think the biggest thing that in reading about these and researching this up and kind of thinking about myself, what motivates me intrinsically and extrinsically, I think the biggest thing I've come to realize that extrinsic motivators tend to be more short-lived and short-term. So for instance, if you give a kid a piece of candy because they were sitting in their seat quietly, well, that's great for that second right there, but that doesn't mean it's going to continue to motivate them down the road. Well, maybe over and over and over repeatedly, it would motivate them to continue that behavior, and that's something different. That's called conditioning. But as far as like short-term motivation is concerned, you're doing it just for that thing. You know, you're trying to reach this goal. You're trying to hit this mark. You're going to get this reward for doing this. And then it kind of like stops there. And like I said, if you continually are getting those motivators, then yes, it would condition your behavior to develop new habits and things like that. But if you are just receiving that once, then that's not really long-term motivation for you to keep going, right? So, but the intrinsic motivators are the ones that tend to propel us forward and keep us motivated for longer amounts of time. If you are, like for me, say, I love to play my instrument. So for me, it was never, like, practice was never a bad thing to me. I know a lot of kids don't like to practice, and for me, that was never a problem because I was intrinsically driven by my own fulfillment that I got from doing that action to continue with it. So I feel like the intrinsic, we really need to find what motivates you, what works for you, and what drives you from the inside, and that's really what's going to take you the furthest, versus if every time you did a workout somebody gives you, you know, $5. I mean, yeah, over time that might lead you to build that habit, but just for that one $5, I mean, you did it and now you're done, right? So to go a little bit deeper into this, a little bit more into the psychology, and you guys, I find this stuff like super interesting, and I did take a couple psychology classes in college. You have to as part of your education major. We had to take educational psychology, but then I also took a regular psychology class. So I did learn about some of this. So it was kind of cool to like read back up on it again and kind of dig up some of that information that I had forgotten. So one of the big things you learn in psychology is this concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow was a famous psychologist that really studied motivation and what drove people, and he developed this hierarchy of needs. So this is really bad with my fingers, but it's a triangle, okay? So obviously your biggest needs are at the bottom, and then as you go up to the top, that's the stuff that you need less and less and less, or not less of, but you just don't need it as much. So at the bottom of the pyramid, if you think about it's split into 5 sections. The very first section on the bottom is going to be your survival needs. So that would be like your food, air, water, sleep, those kind of things. You need the most of those. If you're not fulfilling those needs, then you can't worry about the rest because you're dead, right? So those come on the bottom of the pyramid. And then the next step up is our like safety and security. So having a place to live, having shelter, protection, those kind of things. So those two kind of go together because those are our basic physiological needs, and if those aren't fulfilled, then nothing else really matters, right? And then on top of those physiological needs, so moving up in the triangle, this would be the third section. So now we're in the middle. It's not quite as big as the bottom, you know, we're about like right here-ish. That would be our relationship needs, our social needs. So romantic relationships, family relationships, friendships, things like that. The need to interact with others and to connect with others. That's kind of third on the rung of our needs. So once we are fulfilling our physiological needs, then we can move on to our social needs. And then from there, it goes up to the next step would be your self-esteem. So your reputation, how you feel about yourself, how others view you, that kind of thing. That's next on the list. And then at the very, very tip of the triangle is your self-actualization. So where you've already fulfilled your needs of having all your safety needs, all your basic fundamental needs, then you fulfilled your love and relationship, social needs, and then you kind of fulfilled the way others view you, your self-esteem needs, and then at the very top is your self-actualization. So that's when you are very clear on who you are, and it's kind of like the I don't know what the word I'm looking for, kind of like the peak of everything that all of your needs that you're trying to fulfill. And it's at the top of the triangle, so it's the one that we really, really need the least amount of, but it is the hardest to get to because you've got to go through all those other layers before you get there, right? So there's this notion that if you're having trouble taking action and doing what you need to do to get somewhere, it's probably because you have some sort of your needs are satisfied in a way, even though you might not feel satisfied, but you are doing something to fulfill those needs. So satisfied needs do not motivate you. If you're not hungry, you're not going to eat. If you're not cold, you're not going to put a coat on. You know what I mean? If you're not poor, then you're not going to be motivated by money because you don't need to be, right? Because you already have it. That need is already fulfilled for you. But it's our unsatisfied needs that motivate us to do something about that, to change it. If you don't have a place to sleep, obviously you're going to be very motivated in trying to find a place to live, right? If you're hungry, you're going to be motivated to try and find food. If you've fulfilled all of those basic needs, then if you're lonely, it's because your need for relationships with others and connection with others is unfulfilled. So your satisfied needs are not going to motivate you. It's your unsatisfied needs that are going to motivate you. And I think that's really big for people, because when it comes to things like working out and stuff like that, you don't need to work out to live. Now, some people might argue with me, but I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, exercise, you're not going to die if you don't do some push-ups, right? So that's not a motivator for a lot of people, because it's not something that you need to be able to live. It's not something, so there has to be something else there to make that change for you to be motivated to do that. So with that being said, now we're going to move into kind of a different thing where I think if there's anything you can take away from this whole broadcast, it's going to be this one thing. And the most important thing for motivation is your emotions, how you feel about something. So you can kind of think of it in a circle, like a cycle. So you have an emotion, right? And that emotion is going to affect your thoughts. So if you're super sad and really upset, obviously your thoughts are not going to be the happiest, most upbeat thoughts in the world, right? So your emotion affects your thoughts. Your thoughts then affect your behavior. So if you think that you need something, then you're going to behave a certain way. And then your behaviors then affect your outcome or your performance of, obviously, of whatever you're doing. So if you're attaching a negative emotion to something, then you're going to have negative thoughts about it. You're going to be less likely to behave in a way that's going to make you do it, and then your performance is going to be affected negatively, obviously. So take working out, for instance. If every time you think about working out, you think that it is just the most horrible thing in the world, and you hate the way it makes you feel, and it's hard, and you get sweaty, and you're busy, and you don't have time, and all these negative things you're associating with that behavior, of course you're going to have negative thoughts about it. Right there, I was just listing a bunch of negative thoughts you might have about it. That goes hand in hand with your emotion about it. And then that will affect your behavior. If you have a negative emotion and negative thoughts about it, of course you're not going to want to do it. That makes sense, right? So then if you're not doing the behaviors, then obviously you're not going to meet your goal, whatever it is, if it's lose 10 pounds, this and that, whatever, okay? So let's go the opposite direction now. So say that you love working out and it's like one of your favorite things. So you have a positive, happy emotion associated with that action. So that's going to affect your thoughts. Your thoughts will affect your behaviors. So you're more likely to do something that makes you happy, that you feel good about, right? And then that in turn leads to better performance results because you are taking the actions necessary. So that kind of goes hand in hand with, a lot of like meditation and visualization and things like that, where they tell you one of the strongest things you can do to motivate yourself to want to do something is to visualize yourself doing it. Close your eyes and put yourself in that situation. See yourself doing the tasks. How does it make you feel? Or if it's something that you don't want to do, you can visualize yourself enjoying it and attach that positive emotion to that action. And then you're more likely to do the behaviors and take the necessary steps that you need to get the performance outcome that you're looking for. So really, that's been huge for me, especially this year, because I've had such a negative emotion attached to school this year because of a bunch of things that are going on, that it has made it really, really hard for me to continually be motivated to want to even go every day, right? So really to just change your attitude. And I was the same way about exercise before too, you guys. Like before I ever started this whole wellness coaching thing, I hated exercise. I hated the way it made me feel. I hated that I had to do it. I hated everything about it. But really, how was I able to just all of a sudden transition into now I work out multiple times a week? Well, I had to change something in here. I had to start associating a positive emotion with that. And sometimes that positive emotion, that might come from the fear of what happens if you don't accomplish that goal. So it might not always be, well, now I just love the way I feel when I work out, which is what happened to me after I did it for so long. Then my whole emotion around the whole thing changed because now I liked the way it made me feel. So now I was more likely to do the actions and to get me to where I wanted to go, right? But that being said, sometimes fear is a motivator too. Now, I'm not encouraging you to be afraid of everything, to always look at the worst case scenario, but it can definitely help you motivate yourself to get to where you want to go. So say that if you didn't go to work every day and you didn't get your paycheck, you might lose your place to live, right? And that's a motivator. The fear of not being able to pay your bills and not being able to have the things that you want to have continually drives you to do the things you need to do to make sure that that doesn't happen. So it's all based on your emotions. Like I said, if there's one thing you can take away from this whole thing, it literally is all about the emotion you are attaching to whatever behavior you are trying to change. So I just want to share with you one last thing before I kind of wrap it up here. And that was this blog post that I found from the American Intercontinental University. Ooh, say that 5 times fast, right? So anyways, that's the AIU. For some of you who might be thinking, what? AIU is a university blog. And so they put something on their blog about how exercise actually creates motivation. So those of you who might be struggling with motivation to work out, this is something you might want to hear. So I am going to read this to you guys because I want to make sure I get it right. So exercise creates motivation because when you perform well physically, your brain performs better. So if your brain is performing better, then that in turn makes it have more desire to acquire new knowledge, because that's what our brain is, right? It's a sponge. We're constantly learning. That's what we do as human beings, is we are constantly learning. So if you are performing well physically, if you are exercising and your body is at its peak performance ability, then your brain is also going to be working at its peak performance capacity. And so it will have more desire to acquire more knowledge, and it will also retain it better. So, and then along with that, when you're exercising, you're also fighting stress and anxiety. And so your mood is better. So your emotions are higher, which then therefore you will start to associate better feelings with that action. And that right there will help you stay motivated. So again, it comes back to the emotion that you are associating. So on top of the emotion thing, it's cool that since your body is performing the way that it's meant to perform, so is your brain. And then it is therefore, that will help you be more intrinsically motivated to hone your craft or to continue doing whatever you're doing, even if it's not exercise. But exercise is kind of like the catalyst for getting it all started. So again, guys, it's all about the emotion. If you're associating a negative emotion, this could be anything. It could be any area of your life. If it's your job, your relationship, your wellness, fitness, anything like that. If you're associating a negative emotion with something, if it's something you just dread and really hate doing, then that's going to affect your thoughts around it, which is going to affect your behaviors, which are in turn going to affect your performance. So my biggest tip to you guys is just, if you're struggling, try visualizing yourself doing the thing that you hate doing the most, but visualize yourself enjoying it while you're doing it. Or if it's something that you know you're working towards, visualize yourself doing all the things you need to do on the way to get there. Really dig into it, see how it makes you or feel how it makes you feel, and see yourself doing these things and enjoying them. And then that right there will make your brain start rewiring itself to attach that positive emotion to whatever you're doing. And then that will obviously make it easier for you to do the actions necessary to get where you're trying to go. So I don't see any comments popped up. I don't see any questions or anything from anybody, which is totally fine. I'll just talk by myself here. No, it's okay. I hope that I was able to give you guys some really good information about motivation. There's obviously so much more into it. I mean, I had to stop myself because I was kind of going down the rabbit hole into all the psychology and everything behind it. But like I said, if there's one thing I can give you from this, it's just you got to change your emotion. You got to change the emotion attached to whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, and I guarantee you it will help you 100%. So if you have any other questions, or if you want some more information about anything, or if you just feel like chatting, if you need somebody to maybe give you a little kickstart to get going on something you want to get going with, then just give me a shout out. Either comment below, send me a message, reach out. I'm more than happy to chat with you guys, answer any questions you have, and I look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place. And I hope you all have an awesome Wednesday, and thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.